do you have a barrier inside yourself? Do you have a barrier, a boundary condition where you won't allow certain things to happen? And what's that for you? Hey guys, Matthew Tait here, Fork in Road YouTube channel, your channel for transformation. Today, Andreas and his book keeps on rolling, and we're moving into the area of internal boundaries. The book Transforming Yourself, Becoming Who You Want to Be. And now we're moving to internal boundaries and exercise 13-3. And 13-3 talks about internal boundaries, exploration and discovery. This is cool. So begin exploring your own internal experience silently for 5 minutes using the same list of questions about boundaries I offered you earlier. If I had an internal boundary, where would it be? And what would it be like? After you have learned about an internal boundary, notice what it protects you from and any possible consequences, both positive and negative. Internal boundaries. So we've got internal boundaries, and stopping for a moment to consider an internal boundary for you. Here is the question for internal boundaries. Do you have, I've got my book in my hand here, do you have an internal boundary of any kind? Single or more than one? An internal boundary. Do you not let people into your life? It's like internal. Do you not trust other people? Do you not trust men? Do you not trust women? Do you not trust authority figures? Do you not trust the government? But it's an internal boundary. If I had an internal boundary, where would it be? That's a good question. What would it be like? What would it divide? And what would its positive function be? So think about that with your internal. You might have a block of some sort, and it's shown by physical tension. So you might tap into a feeling in the body. Or if you've got tension in the body, we have overthinking. Is there an internal boundary that's being crossed and your body's trying to let you know? An internal boundary. I sometimes get tension in the solar plexus if I'm not listening to myself, right? And so there's an internal boundary being crossed, and my body's saying, hey, I'm not happy, right? I'm not happy with this internal boundary being crossed, because you're about to do something you really don't want to do to make someone else happy, or you're about to, you've got too much on and you haven't stopped to think about a plan on how you're going to overcome this, because right now I don't trust you. I don't think you've got a plan. Unconscious mind talking to your conscious mind saying, I'm going to give you tension in the solar plexus because you've crossed my internal boundary. So what is that boundary? And is that boundary about looking after yourself? You're not looking after yourself. Some people have a boundary around their heart. I know when I did earlier work in timeline, in NLP, I definitely had a boundary, a barrier protecting my heart. That was an internal boundary. And I think we all have a little bit of boundary work to do. And so let me explore my heart, and let's just have a look and see if there's anything left after all that work I did on that. And so imagine I've got a boundary around my heart. Is that true? There is certainly something still there from all the work I've done in the past. And what is this boundary around the heart? Is it a keep yourself safe, is what I'm hearing. Keep myself safe. It's a boundary around my heart. Keep myself safe. That's the positive intention of that boundary. And so is this boundary serving me? You know, these internal boundaries, the same list as before. Is this boundary serving me? Sometimes it does. Especially in the last activity was someone trying to get me. Well, the external boundaries protect my internal boundaries. And so if I'm not allowing anybody in at all, well, that can have a negative consequence if you don't let people into your heart space. You don't allow that. And that can cause tension because we need connection. Connection is my number 2 value. So I need some connection. And so do you have a barrier inside yourself? Do you have a barrier, a boundary condition where you won't allow certain things to happen? And what's that for you? Go and explore that. And I'll go through the list again. And if I think about mine, I had, it's a single boundary. Oh, once again, it's probably got layers. I reckon it's got 2 or 3 layers around the heart. Or it used to, actually. It's now down to 1 layer, I think. For each boundary, where is it and what are the characteristics? All right, I'm thinking about my heart space, and it's kind of twice the size of the heart. It's like a bubble around my heart space. And that bubble around the heart space, pink I'm getting. And the old one was blue or magenta. Magenta, I think. Magenta. Blue and magenta. Magenta. And there was maybe an old one that was blue. It's not there anymore because I've taken that layer off. And so this layer around the heart, what the hell's it doing there? So let's have a look. So for each boundary, where is it and what are the characteristics? It's like a sphere. It's like a halo sphere, kind of a bubble of energy. And it's more of a warning system than a barrier. It's a boundary, and it's just letting me know when people are getting close to my heart space. Okay? And the modalities, well, I've already got visual. I've got a shape, being the bubble. I've got a color. I've got the magenta. And I had the pink that was closer in. Is it analog or varying over a range or digital on-off? I don't think it turns on or off. It's just a warning system of people getting close to your heart space. Obviously there to protect me from something, right? So there you go. And analog, is it analog? And varying over a space. It's got a thickness to it. It's got a depth to the bubble. It's like a thickness to the bubble around the outside. And so I'll have to explore that and see what I'll let in. What will you allow to pass through this boundary and what will you not allow to pass through? Obviously bad people are not allowed through that barrier. Fair enough. Energy thieves, I've got. Who else is not allowed through that barrier? I had trustworthy people. Untrustworthy people don't come through, and trustworthy people come through. But that's a question of how does someone establish that trustworthiness? Ooh, that's a good one. We better go and check that it's not too rigid and that we do let some people in on those levels. How does the boundary change in different contexts? Yeah, well, obviously intimate partner is very different to friends, which is very different to work or business colleagues, very different. And so some have made it through because they've really proven their worth, their trust into that heart space, and I feel emotional towards those people, even in business. Some people in family have been out of the loop for a long time, let's say, who I've not spoken to for a long time. So aren't quite in that space, but could be if spent more time together. So I'm just realizing it's about time and quality time and deep time, deep meaningful time. That's this barrier in the heart space. The more time I spend with someone, the more they come in, which is sounding fair enough, actually. So that's quite positive. So the positive function is to keep you safe and is to connect, right? So the function of it is to let people in. And what else do we have here? And are there ways in which this, let's see, generally speaking, boundaries protect you from something? What specifically does it protect you from? How does it do it? And how well does it work? What specifically does it do to protect me? I think the thickness of it is, once they've got through the boundary I established earlier, and then through the personal space boundary, then we get to the heart boundary, and there might need to be something in between, because there's different layers of friendship, different layers of connection, different layers of humans in your life. And so if they get to the heart space, what does it protect me from? What is the positive function? The positive function is to know when you're connecting deeply, and also to know when you're not connecting deeply. I think that's what I love about my coaching, is I always connect very deeply with my clients on a much more deeper level. We build incredible rapport, we build incredible connection, and we really go deep and help them resolve those things in their life. And that's the benefit of this book, in that I'm exploring my internal boundaries using the list in 13-3 here, and I'm realizing it's about connection. Am I connecting deeply or am I not? And that's okay if I'm not. You're not going to connect with everybody. So that is the philosophy of the internal boundaries. You start to explore and unpack what it is that's important to you. And for me, it's about deeper connection. And if they're not deeply connecting, they don't get through into the heart space. Now, is it appropriate? Like, is there any problems with this? Are there any ways in which this boundary causes problems for you? Are there any consequences you don't like? Well, yeah, of course. I think that with the heart space, the consequence is you don't let as many people in as you perhaps would like, because there's too many protective mechanisms. And so how can you let someone in and get to that deeper connection? Well, doing a lot of coaching, I'm getting lots of my needs met there as far as I'm getting deep connection with people. But in other ways, you don't want it just to be coaching. You want it to be in your personal life. How do you get that deeper connection? And I think by learning how to communicate, use my coaching rapport building skills, use my coaching awareness as to what I need and what they need, and if I want to connect with someone, allowing them to come on their level and then see where I overlap. That's an opportunity to let them into my heart space. That's an opportunity to let them into the personal space, which then allows them into the heart space. So you can see here I'm starting to refine how I can let people into the heart space by first letting them into the personal space, or even letting them into the outside valuable conversation space. In this little exercise 1, I established my personal space. Exercise 2, I established the valuable contribution to each other's lives space. Is this conversation valuable? And exercise number 3, I've explored my internal heart space. How powerful is that? So that's exercise 13.3, and I've just explored and discovered my boundaries and started to question, well, how else can I let people into my world? And here's the thing, the boundary you're setting up is about establishing your self-concept, but it's about enforcing values or things that are important to you. If you understand that you can still get them and not beat yourself up, internally you can have a whole different experience. So I hope that this little exploration in internal boundaries has been useful for you, and my external boundaries and my outer boundaries, where I allow people in on the different levels of value that I give to them and that they give to me. That's a really healthy starting point. And then if something's not serving me, I can start to explore different ways to get my values and needs met and give them theirs at the same time, and not enforce mine on theirs and not have them enforce theirs on me. Fascinating discussion. I look forward to doing a follow-up video to follow up on this really interesting conversation. This is Matt Tait from Fork in the Road. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, like, subscribe, have a look at the channel, get my videos on a regular basis for free when I upload, and this is now, I think this will be like 18 odd videos I'll break this up into for the self-concept model. Really amazing work, great for your coaching practice, great for you as a personal individual, great to be aware of what's going on inside of you, and great to be aware of what's going on outside of you, protecting yourself while still connecting with other people. An interesting balancing act between ego and between soul, which is something that we do in the DILTS model, something we do in a range of other coaching models, and something that you can find balance inside yourself. Sounds good, doesn't it? Matt Tait, Fork in the Road, YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next video.